It's easy for Joe Biden to say, whenever a crazy white guy shoots somebody, oh, this is an example of domestic extremism. This is why the biggest threat to American life today is white supremacy. This is why we need a special Department of Justice investigation. The data overwhelmingly reflects that the vast majority of shootings and the vast majority of victims of shootings are young black men.
They're still pushing gun control as though that's going to solve anything that we're seeing. Let's keep in mind over the weekend, a really violent weekend across America, 15 dead in mass shootings and 60 wounded across the country in many different cities all across America. There was a mass shooting in Philadelphia where someone, multiple gunmen it seems, just started firing into a packed crowd on a street, and yet we're still being lectured about AR-15s, about the need to do something, and what they're telling us to do, well, we can all discuss whether that would actually have any effect on the violence that's happening every day. Not once every few months or not a few times a year. Every day in America, people are being shot. What are the ways that we could actually reduce that violence? What you get from Democrats in general, people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, here she is on the general sentiment of, we just need to, do something.
So many different areas and issues where all of us agree, if not all, an overwhelming amount of us agree, and Congress still can't get their together. It's really hard, and it's super frustrating. And it's frustrating for you. It's frustrating for me being a part of this. And I don't want to be one of those ding-dongs that just tells you to vote harder. Because the solution's a lot bigger than that. And it's going to take a lot more of us and from us to fix this.
Clay, she talks about big solutions, right? Big solutions, big things. We got to do a lot, right? AOC back in 2019 put this out on Twitter. Mass incarceration is our American reality. It is a system whose logic evolved from the same lineage as Jim Crow, American apartheid, and slavery. To end it, we have to change. That means we need to have a real conversation about decarceration and prison abolition in this country. This abject moron, not quoting anymore, by the way, this abject moron wants to talk about getting rid of all the prisons, and also did get what we've had for a few years now is decarceration, and we are seeing the results.
Two things: more police that are able to do their job and put criminals in jails for longer periods of time. But if she wants to really talk about bigger structural issues at play, let's be honest. This is about men not growing up with dads in their homes and absent fathers. Let's just be real. We have I really believe this, a crisis of manhood in this country. And if you look at the data, and I know there are people who are single parents that are out there listening to us right now, and I'm not trying to denigrate the job that you are doing at all, but when there are not men in a household, when the dad is not present, young boys overwhelmingly suffer. The data reflects that young girls actually do quite well with single-parent households. But for whatever reason, when there is not a man present in a house, as hard as a single-parent mom works to try and fulfill both roles for her child, she can't. And this is the major structural issue that is a proverbial third rail. Nobody wants to touch it. But it is, if you want to talk about root causes for where violence comes from, absent fathers almost always are and is a monster part of this story.
And then there are the people I mean, AOC, for example, was saying abolish prisons. Abolition. They speak about this. And by the way, they use that term specifically to create an association with the abolition of the evil of slavery. So now a society that has prisons for criminals who murder people and do heinous things is somehow on a moral plane. This is the rhetorical strategy they use with a society that has slavery. This is why they use the term abolition. It's very intentional. Abolish prisons. Abolish ICE. You remember that? Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. That was another term.
Defund police. They want to remove all of the cultural safeguards that we have spent hundreds of years developing to keep our community safe.
Well, the true leftist activists, by the way, want to abolish police, actually. They view defund, Clay, was viewed as a moderate measure in their rhetoric. That was the stepping stone. The true leftists want to be involved with abolition of police. But here is, I mean, just to give you a sense of why we all get so tired of this. We're being yelled at by morons constantly, and they just yell louder and louder when we say you don't even have good ideas. San Antonio Spurs head coach Gregg Popovich, he's apparently very woke. Here he is, just in the last couple of days, shouting about AR-15s.
Nobody's trying to take away anybody's guns. Nobody. But they say that, why did this 18-year-old, he probably had mental challenges, but they gave him a gun. They gave him an AR-15. They didn't give him a hunting rifle. They didn't give him a handgun. And the thing that's amazing to me about that, people say, why does an 18-year-old, wait a minute, why can anybody buy an AR-15? I shouldn't be able to buy one. You shouldn't be able to buy one. What the hell do you need an AR-15 for?
I mean, there's so much that's wrong and stupid. First of all, there are a lot of people that want to take away your guns. He's talking about banning the sale of, and if you're going to ban the sale of, you might as well have a mandatory buyback as far as the left is concerned. Clay, of the 15 dead and 60 wounded over this weekend, disproportionately these are occurring, almost all of these are occurring in urban settings. Do we think an AR-15 was used in a single one of these shootings? No. Unlikely. Probably not a single one, in fact. I mean, you have a 95% certainty just based on the stats. But they act like this would stop the violence.
Yeah, the problem is here, to a big extent, people can agree that they want to end violence. But people like Gregg Popovich and Steve Kerr, who are NBA coaches, Steve Kerr said, hey, I don't want any police inside of schools, and protested against the police being present in schools, which would have made a big difference, by the way, in Uvalde. They don't want to have real conversations because they get uncomfortable in a hurry. Same thing with the Biden administration. Because when you drill down here, it's easy for Joe Biden to say, whenever a crazy white guy shoots somebody, oh, this is an example of domestic extremism. This is why the biggest threat to American life today is white supremacy. This is why we need a special Department of Justice investigation. The data overwhelmingly reflects that the vast majority of shootings and the vast majority of victims of shootings are young black men. Young black men make up around 2 or 3% of the American population. I'm defining young as 16 to 40, right? That's young-ish. 16 to 40, around 2 or 3% at most of the overall population. And they are over half nearly of all victims and over half of all shooters. Well, what's going on that is causing that to occur? And if you're an NBA coach, why would you not look at the data if you really want to go after violence and have difficult conversations about who the shooters are, what their motivations are, why this is all happening? Well, that's way too complicated because we've created a world where even if you're trying to create a better situation, if you point out these data facts, it's racist, right, Buck? This is where we've gone, where you share facts and you say, hey, if we're trying to reduce gun violence, number one culprit for gun violence and the number one victim, young black men, if you even talk about the fact that 2 or 3% of the population represents half of all the shootings and the shooting victims in this country, people lose their mind and call you racist.
I want to illustrate a point here. There was a man who was slashed across the face right next to where I live in Times Square in New York City. I live in Midtown. Slashed across the face. NBC Local, the NBC4 station here, did a report on it, did a news story online. This is how they described the suspect. The suspect is believed, this is a direct quote, The suspect is believed to be in his early to mid-30s, about 5'9", with a slim build and short black hair. He was wearing a blue shirt, black pants, and a red and white jacket. End quote.
They won't even tell you the race of the person.
Do you think,
yes.
Was there anything left out of this? By the way,
Yeah.
they have surveillance footage of the guy, but
Yeah.
he is black, and they did not want to include that in the description of a suspect who just slashed open somebody's face for no reason on the subway. NBC knew it. There's a photo of it. Do we really? I mean, if we're looking,
It happens.
if we're looking for somebody and they're 6'10", and you know they're 300 pounds and they have a pink mohawk, you just are going to describe exactly what they look like so you can try to find the suspect, right?
That's the whole purpose of a wanted poster, by the way, is to let people know what the wanted person looks like historically, right? You have to describe the race. They won't do it.
I'm just going
They
to tell
won't
everybody,
do it
you're going to be
for
looking for
black
a
guy.
long time if all you know is mid-30s, 5'9", slim build. Oh, okay.
How many people do you think that fits in the New York City area?
You know, a couple million probably. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they're and you have a picture. That's the data overwhelmingly reflects that when there's a black shooter, a black crime victim, people are so afraid of being called racist that they won't mention the race of.
And you and I know if
culprit.
in the description, whoever that little writer is for NBC, I don't remember who it is. I didn't see it. If that person wrote, black male, mid-30s or whatever, what are the chances that the editor would be like, ooh, don't.
Ooh, got to be careful there.
Got to be careful there, buddy. That's the
Well,
American.
and what are
That's
the
the
chances,
country
by
we
the way?
live in now, folks. With the media, that's the reality.